to We Create, the podcast that brings to light creative projects in our community. My name is Linda Salzer, and in today's episode, we'll be talking about the right stuff. I have a special guest today, my friend, Mary Frances Silitch. It's hard to describe Mary Frances Silitch's background without using the word trailblazer, or maybe contrailblazer, since she has been an aviator since the 1960s, when getting a pilot's license was a rare thing for a young woman. Also rare for a pilot, male or female, is flying 250 different kinds of aircraft, or parlaying that experience into a successful career in publishing. When Washington beckoned, she served as the editor, Director of Communications, and Congressional Liaison for the National Pilots Association. Mary wasn't just the first woman editor-in-chief of Private Pilot magazine. She was the first woman editor of any aviation magazine. She also worked at several other important trade publications and national consumer magazines, from Mademoiselle to the Saturday Evening Post. Despite her demanding day jobs on terra firma, she never lost her love of flying. In 1985, she set a world speed record for light turbine and amphibian aircraft, otherwise known as floatplanes, and has been recognized with a number of awards from Pilot of the Year to a Lifetime Achievement Award for Journalism Excellence. Mary, when was the first time that you knew you wanted to fly a plane?
Well, the first time I went up in a plane, I was only 4 years old, and I went up with my father in an open cockpit crop duster over the family farm in Arkansas, and I didn't decide exactly then that I wanted to fly, but it certainly was an outstanding memory for a long time, and a lot of my friends in Arkansas flew, and so eventually I decided I just had to do it myself.
That's an incredible story. I just have this visual image of you sitting in the plane with the wind in your hair and just looking over the whole world, you know. That's wonderful. And so what happened after that? You made it from 4 years old?
Well, it wasn't until I was living in New York that I decided I would go out and take a few lessons at Teterboro Airport. And it was very expensive. And then I discovered that a friend of mine was going to work for Flying Magazine, and they were going to teach him how to fly. Well, I had worked for Mademoiselle and Saturday Evening Post. I didn't know anything about flying magazines, but I found one on the newsstand, and I said, oh, my goodness, this is interesting. So I said, I think you need me, too, and they did.
Is it really true? I heard the story that you actually corrected some of their articles and sent it back to them, and that's how you got the job?
Yes, well, I found a few mistakes because I'd been trained as a copy editor, and I said, I think you need me too, and they did. So I got
That's excellent advice, right? I mean, it's great advice for anybody to just take the initiative to reach the goal that you want to do.
Right.
That's wonderful. And so, what happened next after that?
Well, we had several different managing editors at Flying Magazine, and I finally said, well, why don't you let me be managing editor? And the publisher of the magazine came over to our apartment and said, you can't be managing editor because you are a girl. And Yeah, this was, the early 70s.
I believe it.
So
but you didn't take no for an answer, did you?
Well, I went to another magazine as managing editor.
That's wonderful. So you went to another magazine?
Yes, I went to Air Progress, and then I became executive editor of that magazine.
Oh.
And then, lo and behold, it was moving to California. So that's when I went to work for the National Pilots Association.
Oh, I see. And that's when you became a congressional liaison, is that right?
Yes. Well, the association was supposed to be, lobbying for general aviation rights in Congress. And they weren't doing much, so I didn't have anything to write about in my newsletter.
Oh, no.
So I started my own little lobbying operation, and it was so successful that they ended up hiring a man to actually be a lobbyist. And so I was introducing him all around Capitol Hill, and we were having lunch with Barry Goldwater Jr.
Really?
One day, and then that's when I found out he was making more than I was. So I had a little bit about that.
What did you do? Oh, I imagine so.
I went to the board and said this is totally unfair. And then, lo and behold, this larger pilot organization got a new president. And the first thing he did was to hire me to run their newsletter.
Oh.
But because I had done such a good job with the other one.
Of course. You were in demand by then.
I took over the AOPA newsletter, which had been done by one of the founders of the organization.
Can you tell me what it was like setting the world speed record on the float planes?
Well, that was very interesting because I had gotten my float plane rating, and there was a new turbine conversion of a Cessna plane, and they were trying to, promote it and everything, and so they asked me if I would, participate in this record-setting operation. It was wonderful, and that's the thing that people always, wow, a world speed record.
It sounds very impressive to me.
Well, it wasn't very fast because, let's face it, with flutes out there, you don't go very fast. I took the record away from the Russian.
Really?
Yeah.
And what year was that?
March 22nd, 1985.
They must have been very upset with that their record was stolen. No, you wasn't stolen. You earned that record.
Oh, yes.
Well, that's wonderful. That's a terrific story. I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts on GPS usage? As the GPS eroded the pilot's navigation skills?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that. I think it's just made life a lot easier for everyone. And I was one of the first people to have GPS in a private plane. And
really?
Yeah, and I really got a lot of points out of that.
Oh, that must have been so interesting to have that technology.
Yeah, it was. And, well, let's face it, I've never been lost. I could get lost on the ground all the time, but not so much with GPS in the car now. But even before I got GPS, I never got lost in the plane.
Well, that's a good thing. We wouldn't have wanted to lose you, you know. We may not have been talking right now on the call here if you had gotten lost.
Right.
And it's really tough when you're up in an airplane and you're looking for your landmarks to keep on course. I've been up in a plane with my friend, and you have to keep an eye out for everything. You don't want to miss them.
Oh, absolutely.
And can you tell me about your husband, Nicholas? And he had an important role with GPS as well, didn't he?
Yes. Well, he was a stockbroker, and after we got married, he started learning to fly too. And he thought,
yeah.
Well, if she can do it, I can too. And he never actually got his license, but he started, writing about the maintenance and the technical aspects and everything. So he, as I said, he became a aviation expert in his own right.
Well, that's wonderful because, it's great having the technical expert right with you when you're flying.
Yes, indeed. He knew all about the maintenance and the care of the plane, and all I had to do was fly it, right?
Well, that's right. That's all you had to do.
And he even wrote a book, How to Make Your Airplane Last Forever.
Really? Is it still in print?
Yeah, actually, because somebody a couple of years ago just ordered one.
Oh, that's great. That's really great. And while you were out flying with him, did he have to fix a plane while you were en route somewhere?
No, I can't recall any time.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
You don't want to have memories about that, about something breaking.
We had technical help too, and a friend of ours, we used to fly him out to California to do the annual inspection.
Oh.
From Illinois.
That's quite a long trip. Well, I can tell you've had many, many great adventures, and that's just, it's like a dream to be able to have done all that flying.
Oh, it was just so incredible to get paid for reading short stories at Mademoiselle, and then to get paid for putting out magazines, and to get paid for flying airplanes. My goodness.
That's a good life.
It was indeed.
Oh, you're so fortunate, to be able to have had a career that you just loved. It wasn't work, I'm sure, because you loved it so much.
Well, I put in a few hours every day.
I would say so. So let me ask you, out of the 250 different kinds of aircraft, do you have a favorite?
Well, it's hard to say. I just like them all. I must say one of the most unusual things was flying the Goodyear blimp.
What was that like?
Well, we were flying over the East River in New York City, and they let me take the controls. Of course, I didn't do the takeoffs and landings. I didn't have the skills for that. But they called out traffic from LaGuardia, and we stopped just dead still right over the East River.
Really? How high were you? Was it like 500 feet above the East River? Or?
Oh, I think we were more like maybe 1,000 feet. But I tried to persuade the Goodyear people that I should get a blimp rating, but they said, well, it takes about 90 hours. So I did not get the blimp rating.
Oh, that's too bad. That would have been fun to have said that.
Yes, I had my instrument rating and multi-engine and seaplane.
Now, I think you told me about having the opportunity to fly a Russian airplane. What was that like?
Oh, yes. Well, when we went to Russia in 1989, every time I had a Russian aerobatic plane on the cover of Private Pilot. So every time I got on a flight, I would give a copy to the stewardess to take up to the pilots, and we would get invited up to the cockpit every time. So on one flight, the last flight back to Moscow, it was I can't remember which plane it was, but it was like a DC-10 type, 200 passengers and all. And they put me in the co-pilot seat and put the headphones on me and started making signs like I should do barrel rolls. Well, I was just so happy to fly straight and level that they got bored with me. And everybody was talking. My husband was there, too, and everything. And they just ignored me, and I flew the thing for like 30 minutes. And I didn't know the Russian word for, where's the autopilot? But that was the most amazing experience.
Oh, what a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Was the interior of the Russian airplane familiar? Are all planes built alike, or? Well,
it was pretty familiar, but, I couldn't find the autopilot.
Oh, what a great story. So we're getting to the end of the podcast here, but I do want to ask you one question. What advice do you give to young folks who have the dream of wanting to learn to fly?
Just do it. I mean, there is no reason why you can't, achieve any dream you have. And it's just such a wonderful feeling to be up there and flying around.
Can you describe it? Well, what's it like to be flying an airplane, controlling it?
Well, I think the one reason I really wanted to fly is because I wanted to be in control. When I was sitting in the back of an airline or something, I just felt so, not in control. But it's just such a wonderful feeling just to be able to take off and fly anywhere you want to go.
That is so true. Well, Mary, it's been such a great honor to have you here with me today, talking about your career in journalism and flying as a pilot. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you for asking me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much.